You know, that constant push for corporate efficiency, it can have some absolutely devastating real-world consequences. And our story today starts in a place that's supposed to be all about fantasy and safety: Disneyland. This was the whole idea behind Disneyland, right? Walt Disney's promise. It was built to be a total escape. For decades, it was the gold standard for safety, a place where all the dangers of the real world were supposed to just melt away.
But on Christmas Eve, 1998, that illusion was shattered. A catastrophic failure on the sailing ship Columbia ride took a life, seriously injured another, and kicked off this huge national debate about whether the happiest place on Earth was, cutting corners.
So what exactly happened? The whole thing started as this massive riverboat, it's a full-scale replica of an 18th century ship, was coming into its dock. But this wasn't going to be just another routine docking.
A heavy metal cleat, the kind you use to tie up a ship, was ripped right out of the hull. It flew through the air and straight into a crowd of people waiting to board. It killed Lewin Dawson, a 33-year-old programmer from Microsoft, and caused horrible, disfiguring injuries to his wife, Liu.
When the official investigation happened, what they found was that this wasn't just one mistake. Oh no, it was a whole cascade of failures. It was, in the worst possible way, a perfect storm of pure negligence.
The official report laid out this just horrifying list of problems, and right at the center of it was this one catastrophic choice. They'd switched out the traditional hemp rope for a modern nylon one. Now, this new rope was super elastic, so when the ship came in too fast, that rope stretched and basically turned that 4-kilo iron cleat into a projectile from a giant slingshot. And on top of that, you had an untrained manager docking the ship, the wood on the hull was rotting, and they'd just gotten rid of a key safety position.
And the institutional breakdown afterwards was, well, it was just as telling. It took the Anaheim police 4.5 hours to even start their investigation on site. It was so embarrassing that it led to the police department actually stationing a full-time employee at Disneyland just to make sure that never happened again.
But here's the thing. These failures weren't just random acts of carelessness. They were symptoms of a very deliberate new corporate strategy. A strategy that was designed by one of the world's most powerful and secretive consulting firms, McKinsey and Company. So, to impress the board and really boost the bottom line, a Disney executive named Paul Pressler brought in McKinsey. After a year of studying the park, the consultants set their sights on the maintenance division, an organization that, by the way, was seen as the best in the world, and they recommended slashing its budget by 25%. Their big idea was this system from the airline industry called Reliability-Centered Maintenance, or RCM. The philosophy behind it was simple: let historical data, not the experience of the actual mechanics, decide when and how you do repairs. So if the data showed a part had never failed before, the new way of thinking was, why waste time and money checking it? And the shift was dramatic. You had these dedicated ride experts who were replaced by floating crews. That daily preventative care was pushed aside, and most of the maintenance work got moved to the graveyard shift, so you had mechanics working in the dark, totally exhausted and disconnected from their families.
You know, a Disney employee really nailed the whole conflict. When a McKinsey consultant asked him why he inspected the lap bars on a roller coaster every single day when their data showed they'd never failed, the mechanic replied, "The reason there are no accidents is because we checked the lap bars every day." That same employee who had warned his bosses in writing about how dangerous this new system was later fired.
Now, the advice McKinsey gave to Disney, this wasn't a one-off thing. It was a core part of their playbook, something they used across dozens of industries, and often with absolutely devastating results.
For Purdue Pharma, for example, smack in the middle of the opioid crisis, they came up with strategies to turbocharge sales of OxyContin. They even helped the company push back against emotional messages from families who'd lost loved ones to overdoses.
Or for Allstate Insurance, McKinsey advised them to turn their claims department into a profit center. And how did they do that? By basically weaponizing their legal team and creating scripts to systematically bully accident victims into taking low, quick settlements.
And for U.S. Steel, the advice was just simple and dangerous: cut, cut, cut maintenance. And they said this directly over the objections of union workers who were warning them that people's lives were at risk.
So this all brings up a really crucial question. When things go wrong on this kind of scale, who is actually responsible?
In 2024, McKinsey agreed to pay over $600 million to settle investigations into its role in fueling the opioid crisis. I mean, that's a massive amount of money, but it was paid without them ever admitting they did anything wrong.
And yet, when it comes to what happened at Disneyland, McKinsey has always denied any connection at all. Their defense is always the same. Hey, we're just consultants. We only offer advice. We don't make the final calls. They can always say, we didn't give the order.
And that leaves us with a really critical question for any modern company. When the architects of a disastrous strategy can just claim they only gave advice, where does the buck really stop? Who is truly responsible for the consequences?